So the last thing I want to talk with you about today is all this stuff we've just talked about. You get it sorted out, it feels good internally, you feel like you got a good program plan in place, but how can you be strategic in communicating with others about this? And the way I'm going to do that is by sharing with you some examples of communication missteps that nonprofits sometimes make, and then offering some suggestions about how you might communicate a similar message in a more strategic way. And really what we're talking about is how do you come to understand your audience and come to understand the kind of difference or the kind of messaging that will really resonate with that audience, that will really kind of connect for them and make sense. So communicating about your program design shouldn't be something you do in sort of a generic way. It should be something you do in a way that you're really focused on connecting with whoever it is you're hoping to connect with and what kind of information they need in order to be able to act. You know, if it's a program proposal, you really really thought a lot about the funder you're sending it to and what their priorities are and what their interests are, and found some way to connect your message to that. By the way, this photo here is from the Hillside Music Festival, which is the example I used earlier. So here's something that people sometimes say when they're communicating about their program and about their impact. You don't want to say, our proposed program will help youth succeed using social media. You know, pretty vague, pretty high level, seems to be using some trendy words, but it's not very clear what's going on there. What might be better to say is we have a good track record in helping homeless youth build better social skills and set life goals. We've offered this program to 100 homeless youth over the past year. Our online harm reduction approach seems to work especially well for youth with addictions issues. So that's why we're proposing to develop this program focused on social media for a particular group of youth, because it builds on the success we've already had, and it tweaks it and takes it in a slightly new direction. And again, you don't want to just say rates of spousal abuse continue to rise in our community. We need to take action. That's a great statement of community needs. I'm assuming all of these statements, you know, you've got the evidence behind them, you know, to back them up. So that's a great statement of community need, but it doesn't say anything about why your approach is going to make a difference on that community need. What you might want to do is also add, our work is focused on helping women build safety plans, which is a key step in helping them obtain and maintain stable housing. So you've really taken that big outcome of addressing spousal abuse and unpacked it in a way that makes it clear what your contribution is going to be. Don't say, one of our participants ended up getting a great job through someone she met here, even though nothing in your program plan talks about employment as an outcome. Right? And I think this is the misuse of an anecdote that we often see in grant applications, is that this is a great story and it's wonderful that that happened for that person and it's exciting, but it isn't tied in any way to what you're saying your program is about. You know, it's just a one-off, and it may be quite an unusual story. This might not be typical for people in your program. It's just a really neat thing that happened one time. So here's a way you might sort of still use that story, but use it in a more strategic way, right? Our program helps people develop life goals and access the supports they need to move forward on those goals. Last year, we worked with a small group of 20 highly engaged participants facing significant challenges. 10 participants developed new goals and action plans. And of those 10, 5 found jobs. We had one participant who used the plan we helped her develop to get a job working with one of our partners. So it's the same story, but you've walked it back so that people understand that your focus isn't exactly on helping people get jobs. It's on helping individuals facing significant challenges develop life goals and make progress on those goals. So the story is now sort of brought into formation with your overall messaging about what you're trying to do. Don't say, we know this program is the solution. We've known it for a long time. The only problem is that you haven't been willing to give us enough money to do it. And this happens sometimes, right? You get frustrated and you think, my goodness, you know, like we're out here, we're doing it, we know it's working, we know it's making a difference. Why can't people just get that? Why can't people understand that? And I think the problem with that statement is it's lazy. right? You're more or less saying, we're not going to do the work of articulating for you why you should care about our program. We just want you to kind of trust us and believe in us and get out of our way and let us do our thing. It sounds arrogant. It sounds like you're not willing to learn. It sounds that you don't think you might make mistakes or you might need to tweak. It sounds like you believe you've got the whole solution worked out. Instead, you might be smarter to say, here is information about the impact we've been able to achieve to date. If you were able to help us expand the program, we would be able to reach X new people, including Y people from a group we aren't reaching right now. This would help to fill a key gap in service that's been identified in local research. Don't say, our drop-in helps newcomers be job ready, if that's what they want. Other times, it's more about helping them feel welcome in the community. Also, in some ways, our impact is just as much on our volunteers as it is on our participants. Really, though, this is all setting the stage for our advocacy work. That's just a bit all over the place, right? It's not clear what your focus is. It's not clear what your priority is. It sounds like you're just sort of throwing as many ideas about change at the wall as you can in the hopes that one of them appeals to your audience. You clearly don't know a whole lot about your audience and haven't sort of come up with a message that's consistent and focused. So instead of saying that, you might want to say, as you know, our program's primary focus is on creating a sense of belonging for newcomers. And not only that, we're even more focused. We define belonging as including 3 elements, A, B, and C. And whether you're talking about the volunteer part of it or whether you're talking about the advocacy part of it, you're always pulling it back to your key focus, which is a sense of belonging for newcomers. Don't say, we could send you stats, but they don't tell the real story. Our outcomes are different for every client. The only way you're ever going to understand how our program helps is if you come here and see it for yourself. And I get why people feel like saying this, because it's true in a certain sense, right? You work there, you go out every day onto the floor or into the neighborhood or wherever it is that you work, and you truly can sort of feel the impact, right? You can tell that the program is helping people, and you're 100% confident that it's true, and you just wish that you didn't have to sort of, turn that into little bits of text that fill in boxes on the funding application, but that people could just sort of have that experience that you've had and kind of get it, right? But I think you're sort of bowing out of the evaluation game when you're saying this. You're suggesting we don't have data, we're not interested in getting data, and also that we haven't done the work to kind of package why our project is valuable in a way that an outsider will understand. You're kind of expecting the funder or whoever it is you're speaking to do the work of figuring out why your program is worthwhile and why they should support it. So what might be better would be to say, we work with very vulnerable youth, and each of them face a complex and unique set of challenges. That's why we've adopted an approach to evaluation that focuses on all 8 developmental assets and relies heavily on case studies and interviews. So you're still owning the fact that your program is very flexible and that it adapts to meet the needs of different clients and that there is no sort of single outcome that you're always going for, but you're showing that you've really sort of followed through on that philosophy and created an approach to evaluation that really makes sense for that kind of a program and that you're learning and growing from it. These examples come from a guide that we created together with the Ontario Nonprofit Network, who I mentioned earlier. And if you go there and look up simple tips for communicating about impact, you can find a bit more detail on these examples and some more tips and strategies on how to use them. So to summarize, when you're communicating about your program design, you want to focus. You don't want to talk about a whole bunch of different outcomes. You want to talk about a small number of short-term outcomes that are closely tied to the work you know how to do and are in your wheelhouse. You want to turn outward. You want to demonstrate that you understand that there are other organizations in your community working on the same stuff, and that you sort of support and respect the work that they do, and you know that there are others who have developed ideas about how to solve this problem, and that you're aware of their efforts and you're aware of which of those efforts have been helpful and not, and you've used that stuff to inform what you're doing. That you have a unique niche and your work complements and enhances what others are doing. You want to share. You don't want to sound defensive or sound like you're not willing to kind of admit your mistakes. You want to show, look, we've done some good stuff. It's certainly made a difference. Let me explain to you how we know that. But let me also show you that we've made some mistakes or there are some gaps and we continue to evolve and improve as time goes on. You want to engage. If you're able to do these first three things yourself, I think you are able to sort of expect and request that same behavior from your funders and partners. So if you're saying, hey, we've done a really good job of trying to focus and trying to show you our evidence, so we'd like to hear what your focus and your evidence is too. We'd like to see what the background is for these priorities that you put in your call for proposals, or we'd like to see, what your stakeholder engagement strategy has been, or we'd like to know what you feel were the mistakes you made in the last process and how you've learned from those mistakes. So I think expecting these behaviors from your partners is key to kind of strategic communication as well. So here's another little worksheet you might want to think about that sort of builds on the first one I put up. So you might continue on in your little messaging exercise, your little elevator speech exercise by saying, we'll be evaluating this program as we go to show that it's making a difference. In particular, we're going to be watching for these certain evaluation questions using these particular indicators. I should have had a blank for indicators up there. We're also going to keep an eye out to make sure that we're ready for the unexpected. And then kind of wrapping it all up and sort of demonstrating that you know who your audience is. You want to say, we know that X priority or issue is a big concern for you. And we feel strongly that this program can make a unique and worthwhile contribution to tackling this issue. So hope that's helpful. Sometimes kind of trying to distill all of the day-to-day complexity of your work down into something really pithy and really focused is a good exercise and prepares you to kind of communicate more strategically about it with outsiders in a variety of ways, and in particular when it comes to developing a program design for the sake of submitting a proposal to whatever funder it might be. So I've drawn on a number of different examples in my presentation, and here are links to each of them. The actual program design development resource is posted on the United Way's website. The podcast and the tips for communicating about impact are here. Also, my little analogy about indicators and ship navigation is featured in a YouTube video that you can look up if you want. So, of course, the program design development resource has a whole bunch more links in it, and there's some great stuff there on how to develop logic model, for example, or where to find indicators, and a bunch of other topics. So I didn't include those links here because they're already posted, but I certainly recommend them. Thanks very much for your attention. I hope this has been useful, and good luck in your work developing program designs and evaluation designs. Thanks again, and bye for now.